Hello and welcome to this exam question video. Today we're looking at question 16.1 and point 2, which are asking you about different types of joints in the body. Now for AQA GCSE, you only need to know these two joints. We've got the hinge and the ball and socket. Now what I will quickly do is run you through other ones that you will need to know as you progress onto BTEC level 3 or A level or IB, whatever it might be, or if you are watching this from a more macro look at things, not just AQA GCSE, you will need to know different types of joint as well. So the two that we're going to look at are the hinge and the ball and socket, or B and S. But within that, or sorry, outside of that I should say, which you don't need to know for your AQA exam, but are also present around the body, we've got the saddle joints, we've got the plane or the gliding joint, if I just put plane down, we've got pivot joints, and condyloid. So I'll quickly run through these ones in red and then we will focus on the ones which I've just highlighted in green there that we actually need for this exam question. So the saddle looks a little bit like a horse saddle, or Pringles is another way to think of it. If you were to stack two Pringles one on top of the other, and you'd be able to slip that Pringle on the top either up and down or rotate it across like that. So it's when the two bones which are meeting have those shapes, such as in the thumb, you can slip them up and down or over and under. Plane joints or gliding joints are when two bone surfaces are flat on top and they can move across each other like so. Pivot is where we have a protrusion on one bone and then a ring or a hoop or a gap which slots over the top and then can rotate on the top, so like thumb, circle, and then pivots around it. The condyloid joint is then similar to the ball and socket, it's just a little bit shallower. It hasn't got as much range of movement as we do when we have a full ball in a full socket where we've got multi-directional movement. A condyloid is almost a shallower dish shape and a more gradual curved end which slots into it, so we still get that multi-directional movement but just a little less. Which brings us on to the two that we are caring about for this exam question here. So give an example in the skeleton of a hinge joint, which just like a door can open and close. A hinge joint only allows movement in two directions, forwards and backwards, or flexion and extension. And in the body, we're dealing here with our knee, our elbow and our ankle. Now the ankle is a complex joint, which for GCSE level, you just need to know it as a hinge joint, which can perform plantar flexion when toes point down towards the floor, where you plant your foot into the floor for plantar flexion, and dorsiflexion, which is you lift your toes up to the sky, contracting your tibialis anterior. And by doing that, you could be stopping a door. So dorsiflexion to stop a door, plantar flexion to plant your foot into the ground. Now at the ankle we also have eversion and inversion, but there's technically two joints at the ankle, but for GCSE level you just need to know about the top joint, or the true joint, which is a hinge joint, which that allows for that plantar flexion and dorsiflexion. So that would be one example. The knee and the elbow, obviously we have flexion and extension occurring there without multi-directional movement being possible. If we were to cause multi-directional movement, such as going sideways into abduction or adduction or rotation, for example, then it's possible that the joint could dislocate and cause injury and damage to that joint. Below, we've got an example in the skeleton where a ball and socket joint can be found. So like I sort of said and demonstrated earlier, a ball and socket joint is the bone with a round head which slots into a recess or a cup or a bowl or a socket. So as they connect, that head of that bone can rotate in most, if not all directions with a wide range of movement, and it can achieve the widest range of movement actions out of all of the joints. So where do we find these types of joints in the skeleton? At the shoulder and at the hip. So at the shoulder, huge range of motion in every single direction. The hip, it's a little bit more restricted just because of the joint structures and the ligaments and the muscle structures around that as well. But where in the body do we find the ball and socket joint? The shoulder and the hip. So that was a quick run through of the joints that do exist, but for AQA GCSE you just need the hinge and the ball and socket. Where are they in the body? The hinge is in the elbow, the knee, the ankle. Where are the ball and sockets? They're in the shoulder and the hip. So I hope you found that useful, and I'll see you again in the next video. Bye for now.